going in 50 years? What do we want it to look like, and how do we get there? And so, like, they've completely ceded that ground to the left, because, I mean, someone, like, again, this is like the lie of liberalism, is like that it's all individual choices and it's unplanned, and things just kind of happen. But I mean, someone is going to decide where we're going. I mean, you see it now with the World Economic Forum, and you see how these people are kind of filling the vacuum of government, and they're telling the governments now where things are going, and they're deciding what direction technology is going. So, yeah. I mean, the first step is you have to acknowledge that, like, it's always people at the top that are shaping the future, and it's always a planned society, and you have to decide who's going to plan it and for what purpose. But we have an entire right wing that just denies that.
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, if we just take something like mass immigration, like that's a part of mass society, mass immigration, to be mass consumers in mass supermarkets and mass foodstuffs, which are mass traffic. Everything's mass. And this is kind of like where we are now. Now the technology, what you see emerging from like the World Economic Forum and whatnot, they're kind of addressing the problems created by like a mass consumerist society. I mean, just take that as it is. And what they're doing is giving their own solutions. And that's why you'll see, like, let's get rid of beef. We got to live in pods. We've got to eat maggot burgers and all of this. So the synthetics, 3D printed steaks, all of this stuff is what this is their like solution to the problems which, to be honest, they created. And I would lump mass immigration in with that. So it seems to me like at least an idea to pitch on the right is the idea you step outside of the entire frame of a mass society. And with the technology which we see coming in, that's actually doable. But, and this is where it gets a little bit more dicey, we can't pretend that so we can deliver in as many material goods and comfort as neoliberalism can. So I mean, but I think one of the reasons why nationalists struggled with globalism and globalization is that you couldn't compete with the cheap wine coming in from France and the steaks coming in from Argentina. It was like a powerful thing because but now that's going to be taken away from you anyway. And so if you can have a smaller, more localized way of living, and you just break apart the mass society, it's at least a vision to strive for, rather than trying to compete against it within its own terms, where you're going to say, because then you're going to say, well, we're going to like sort of solve all these demographic problems, but we're going to do it within like the mass society. I think the problem is the sort of mass consumer society to begin with. And so let's just say, you live in your 3D printed house. It may well be that you don't. It may well be that steak becomes a luxury item again. It may well be that you've got to eat chicken less and more vegetables, a more like old-fashioned organic life. As I mentioned before, I never actually ate steak until I was about 12 or 14 years old. But what you're going to get back from that is actually a more fulfilling life, I would say. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, like I remember, like one time there was someone was tweeting out like that KFC was going to try out using fake meat, where like they clone the protein cells. So it's not actually like soy, like vegan meat. It's actually like it's real meat, but it's produced in a lab rather than from animals. But someone was saying this like, oh my God, this isn't the future we were promised. And I did say like, is it really that much worse that KFC is going to be selling lab-grown meat rather than like the way they currently produce chickens, where they have like tens of thousands of chickens in close quarters that have sores on their legs because they don't have enough room to walk around, and they're injected with antibiotics and growth hormones and all this stuff. They never see light in their lifetime. And, people are pushing back, you're like, you're on the side of like the globalists and stuff. But it's like, if in terms, like, again, it's like, the globalists are like coming up with a solution, however unsatisfactory to this stuff. But then the tendency is to just knee-jerk kind of defend the status quo. And yeah, as you say, you end up that where people that should be defending a more authentic sort of folkish, sort of embedded way of living end up kind of reactively defending like the worst elements of mass society.
Yeah.
So I do think that's a problem. But I mean, yeah, like what you say, I mean, you can see as well that this stuff is kind of appealing to people, I'd say, especially younger people, and that you find that, and I think this is one of the reasons why they need more immigrants is like, I think young white people are less taken in by the standard kinds of consumerism, in terms of the typical stuff people would spend their money on, and you see that they're much more they're much more spend their money on experiences. They're looking for authenticity. Now it's people spend money on more stuff like holidays and various kinds of orientations and trips and stuff. You have the growth of like local industries, and people are kind of proud to buy things that were kind of locally produced. I do think that there is a sense in people that are brought up in that they know nothing else but neoliberalism and globalism. I just think it's interesting. You see this kind of opposite reaction where you find that even like shitlib types, that they're looking for something authentic and local and like their spending habits. You see like people adopting things like minimalism and like tiny houses where like they're completely shunning like that sort of boomer idea of like how things should be in terms of you go out, you get your job, you get a loan, you get a mortgage, you live in the suburb, and it's a weird thing where you have like I don't think they even know the motivation behind it themselves, but I think you are seeing people are moving back towards something that feels more authentic. And I think those things are just going to have more appeal the more that we get the WEF version of the world enforced.
Yeah, and so like you see around here, farms. It's a roaring trade where a farmer will have his own shop. So it's organic meat. So the like my parents go along to this farm and they'll pick up like chickens and whatnot which have been reared on the farm and killed by the farmer, and they pay through the nose for it as well. I mean, you can get fancier stuff there like deer or venison and things, but a lot of it's kind of basic stuff like pork and stuff, and it's like why can't we do that a lot more? Because and again, like it may well be a luxury item because just the sheer wealth of products which neoliberalism has delivered. Like I was saying about the socialists before, like to me it seems that problem's been solved. The bigger problem is actually having a life which is meaningful and worth living. So it's in my eyes they're just barking up the wrong tree altogether. And I think the right can have these kinds of visions where we can say, I mean, so the Guillaume Fay thing where he predicted, as far as I know, I haven't read the book. You have, haven't you? But I'm gonna order it. See who has it. But it's like he predicted that there would be this huge crash, and then you would have these techno cities. But then out in the hinterlands in the provinces, like there would be a more organic life, and he seems to have gone quite far with it, where people would become more religious again and things like that. Now that really appeals to me, but the key point is that it isn't a mass consumer society anymore. That for me is the problem.